In the 1930s, an extraordinary crisis gripped our nation, the Great Depression. Laissez-faire economics had concentrated power in Wall Street and big business. The economy crashed and put millions of people out of work. The old political and economic order, government of, by, and for the elites, had failed on a scale never before seen in our history, and yet that old order still clung to power. Across America, people took to the streets demanding fundamental change. When the International Ladies Garment Workers Union called for action, 70,000 dressmakers walked out. On the West Coast, longshore workers from Seattle to San Diego went on strike. On July 5th, 1934, police in San Francisco attacked these workers, and the Embarcadero ran red with blood. In America's Heartland, farmers led protests demanding a moratorium on mortgage foreclosures. They set up roadblocks to prevent sheriffs and bank agents from auctioning off family farms. Desperate for a new direction, new ideas, and new leaders, America turned to a new president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. FDR and the leaders of his administration, like Henry A. Wallace, understood that this historic crisis required a fearless and visionary response from a government determined to put the United States back to work. The answer was the New Deal. The New Deal created jobs for millions of Americans, but it was not just about fixing a short-term problem. It was about addressing deep social, economic, and environmental needs. It was a massive investment in the infrastructure of rural and urban America. It was about laying out a sound economic foundation for America's farms and families. It was about conserving America's resources, its soils, forests, prairies, and wetlands for future generations. It was about government setting the ground rules for industry so it could no longer run roughshod over the interests of the nation and its people. Make no mistake, the New Deal was fiercely opposed by those vested interests, and Henry Wallace, FDR's Secretary of Agriculture and later the Vice President, was one of the most vilified leaders in the New Deal, only because he dared to believe democracy must put people first and dollars second. The story of the Great Depression is a story of how people from all walks of life stepped up, worked together, and pulled our nation out of economic and environmental ruin. Now, however, we face another crisis, one that fundamentally threatens the future of our country and the world. Climate change is fueling massive social, economic, and political disruptions, threatening food system collapse, drought, devastating weather events, and mass migration. Now, it is disproportionately hurting the people who did the least to cause it. The science is clear. If we don't act now, the consequences will be irreversible. To tackle this extraordinary crisis, we need a bold response comparable to the great programs of the past. We need bold solutions that move us rapidly off fossil fuels, reform industrial agriculture, and transform our transportation system. And as in the 1930s, we need bold politicians who will break free from the influence of industries that profit from the status quo. Most of all, we need an army of activists demanding transformative change. The young people of the Sunrise Movement have answered the call. They have bravely challenged the industries driving the crisis and the politicians who are unwilling to act. They have put climate change front and center in the national conversation. Their ambitious call for a Green New Deal has captured the imagination of millions. The Green New Deal is not one policy or program, but a vision of an equitable society powered by renewable energy.
Young people often rise to changing the world because we're at the intersection of criticality and hope. We see the pain of the world, and we also see its possibility.
These young activists are demanding that the nation's leaders craft and implement effective programs that put millions of people to work as we transition to a fossil-free economy, build clean infrastructure, reinvest in communities, and reverse the devastating impacts of climate change.
The Green New Deal is named after the New Deal, in large part because they both are focused on investing in people and investing in society and investing in America, not just in corporations.
Led by people as young as 13, this movement is demanding that politicians refuse to take fossil fuel money, staging passionate protests at their offices and in their own communities. They have been unrelenting in their call for action. Leaders must stop stalling and act now. In defying convention and sometimes the law, these young activists inspire people of all ages. Their courage gives us heart. They remind us that at the beginning of every great movement, visionary demands are always met with ridicule and derision. But if we persist, a day does come when the powers that be have to reckon with us. New leaders emerge in moments of crisis. The Sunrise Movement is joining with activists and communities nationwide to catalyze a new movement for a Green New Deal. If we step up and support these young leaders, we can reverse the tide and build a new energy economy that is just and prosperous for all. The Wallace Global Fund is proud to recognize the courageous and transformative activism of the Sunrise Movement with the Henry A. Wallace Award.